Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, I may shed a little tear. We're growing up a little bit here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our first ever review copy provided to Retro Rebound ahead of its launch. And that game is Mario and Rabbids Spark of Hope. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is a series that I can't believe exists, but I'm so glad it does, that is the Mario and Rabbids series. Specifically in 2017 when it began with Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, a game that shot up to the top of my Game of the Year list, and I still talk about to this day because it is so incredible how Ubisoft, of all developers, stepped in and said, let's mix the Rabbids with the Mario universe. Oh, and we'll also make it an XCOM style game. And it's going to work really well. It's amazing. And guess what? The sequel is more of that. It's better in a lot of ways. And I'm so excited to talk about it. So a big shout out to Ubisoft for the review copy for this game. I've had it for about a week now. Been able to tinker, mess around, hop around some planets, complete some side content, goof off with the story. And now it's time to deliver. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are new here, of course I always promote the nostalgia retrospective content we're known for here. But fret not, we do our day one Nintendo Switch reviews, or like day 4, 5, 6, and so on, depending on what kind of game it is and when I get it. You know how it works. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And now, let's begin. First thing I noticed firing this game up, you can't really help but notice it given it's the Nintendo Switch. And I'm not really a graphics guy, but this game looks really good. Whether it's docked, whether it's in handheld, Mario and Rabbids looks good. Its color especially pops big time on the OLED as you go from planet to planet. So that really stood out to me. But I just got to say, this ain't no Pokemon Legends Arceus. This game actually legitimately looks good, especially in its fully rendered cutscenes. I was impressed with the production quality here. It feels like they really took all the ideas from the first game and turned them up to 10 here. For better, and in some cases, possibly for the worse, depending on who you are. But I just got to say, presentation-wise, this game is a dramatic improvement. But there is one change that I'm not too crazy about. I love the sort of cavemen trying to figure out how to communicate with one another approach that Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle had, where you would occasionally read text specifically from Beepo, but you would have the Mario and Rabbid characters not talk to one another. They just go, oh yeah, oh, how about that? And they just make all these weird noises, and you'd kind of decipher and go, oh, you're talking about that over there. Okay, let's go do that. I like that approach, whereas here in Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope, like, you'll just read text, and you'll still see occasional funny things, but like the Rabbids talk fully now, and it's a much more voice-acted game. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just prefer the charm of the first game in that regard, but it never disrupted my experience. It definitely, I feel, is something worth calling out, though. The general premise for the story, and I'll be honest, you're not going to play Mario and Rabbids for the story, but I want to mention it anyway. It just serves as a conduit to get you from planet to planet to planet and just enjoy the gameplay systems it has to offer. Is that Cursa is back and is now trying to conquer the galaxy with a corruptive energy known as the Dark Mess. This Dark Mess will do things like destabilize the weather patterns on various planets that you visit, and you'll notice that right away, like the opening planet in the game. It's going to be pouring rain, even though it's supposed to be a beach paradise. So you need to find these purified Dark Mess energy crystals that you'll get by completing main objectives in the story. And once you do, you can take what are called warp tunnels to other planets. If I were to do an elevator pitch for this game, and while I never finished the game when it came out with 3D All-Stars, I would just say that it reminds me of them taking the premise with like the Lumas and whatnot of Mario Galaxy and turning it into an XCOM style RPG, and then throwing in the Rabbids and a lot of open area exploration and side content. It is really different, but also familiar at the same time. And I imagine old school Mario fans are really going to gravitate towards this one more, where Kingdom Battle felt a lot more individualized. Like, let's just see how people feel about the gameplay systems and the occasional callback. Whereas this one reminded me a ton of my time spent with Mario Galaxy. And I love that because, you know, each planet had their own characteristics, each level had their own vibe. Same thing here in Mario & Rabbids Spark of Hope. Now, cleaning up the planet of the Dark Mess also unlocks more side activities and will change the appearance of said levels, as I mentioned before. Now, what I love about the side quest structure here is when you complete them, they'll give you planet coins that you can use at the shops for rare unlocks. These are things like weapon skins, unique keys that you can use to unlock secret zones. So there is a reason to go all in on the completionist side of things. What I will say with the side activity is there's a lot of combat focused side activities, the occasional puzzle, the occasional coin collector, like get all these red coins and run around a lap or do some platforming. Sometimes there's some almost Captain Toad tower reorientation where you have to get creative with how you move the camera as you navigate it and find a key and then go and find a door and unlock it that way. There's a lot of different approaches to the side content here. It reminded me in a really, really odd way of an open world Lego game, and I say that in a positive way. I love the Lego games. They had this fun completionist aspect to them all, but they never overcomplicated the process. It very much wanted you in the Lego games to go from one activity to the next, to the next, to the next, and not have you stick on one for far too long, whether it be a small puzzle, a battle, so on and so forth. They just wanted to keep you moving and enjoying the game and the world. And I feel that here in Mario and Rabbids. I feel like they just wanted you to enjoy a quick puzzle and then move on. And now you're in a battle and then move on. And now you're in this tower kind of mini game and then move on. I really liked the approach here to Mario and Rabbids and how they handled, you know, expanding the amount of content. Because for those who didn't play Kingdom Battle, this game here, it was very much point A, point B. Point A, point B. And maybe you'd find a warp tunnel and you'd get some coins and get an unlockable, but then back to your main story route. This game opens things up a lot. In Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, every battle felt intentional. It was like every segment of the level was created to hold that battle. Whereas in Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope, what would occur is you'll dash into an enemy as if it's a random encounter and fight them in a preset stage. Now, all these stages are oriented differently, and it works a lot of the way that you would expect from Kingdom Battle. Like, you'll be able to destroy cover. There's a lot of the XCOM elements, plus more we'll get into. But there are many, many more battles. This is where the way you play the game will change your interpretation. For me, I was ebbing and flowing back and forth between exploration, side content, main content, battles. So I didn't mind that. But I definitely noticed there's a major uptick in battles here, where for this game, you'd have these long-term battles that were really thoughtful, where I would say Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope takes more of a turn-based RPG approach, where it's just another fight for you. And as you complete these fights, you're going to get XP, you're going to get star bits, which we'll get into in just a moment here. But it does remind me more of that game, whereas this was true XCOM, where like every battle was an operation, and you really had to watch the enemy and what they were doing, where there are plenty of battles in Sparks of Hope that you can just kind of breeze through. In each of these battles, you'll have multiple objective types, from reaching a certain area, which doesn't demand you to beat all the enemies, to killing all the enemies, to very specific story ones, so it varies depending on where you are in the game. There are tons and tons of enemy archetypes and enemy spawns. So this is one thing that I think will be contentious with some people, is you'll be in a battle, and you'll see this black warp pool show up, and next turn, a bunch of enemies will pour through it. This does create some tension, although I felt it was artificial. It wasn't like the enemies were challenging me as much as maybe they would have in Kingdom Battle. Don't get me wrong, Kingdom Battle wasn't like a really tough game. It's designed for a particular audience. Let's be honest with ourselves. As, you know, I, the man-child, dive headfirst into it. But in Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, this sort of black whirlpool will spawn enemies, and they'll just kind of keep throwing themselves at you. I do like how you can interact with them, which I'll talk about in a second here, but I just feel that sometimes they throw enemies at you because they don't know how else to create a challenge through the level and the enemy types. Although there are some, and there are some specific to biomes in the game, which does continue to vary up your approach. These are things like elemental weaknesses. Some are weak to fire or will shoot you with fire, and they'll make you like sprint around and leave your cover, so you will really be exposed and have to reorient yourself. Movement is key in these games, and that was one thing I loved about Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, was you would be able to bounce off your teammates and go to another region of the map. This game takes the movement and cranks it up to 10 in a way that I think is beautiful. So what happens is your ability to move is now in a more open area. You can move within a zone, and you can increase that by leveling up your skills as you complete battles in the game and get skill prisms, among many other skills we'll talk about. But as you move around the map, that won't count as a turn. You get 2 action points per turn that you can spend on something like a spark, which you can use to apply a buff to your team, whether it be like 20% more damage or more range on your Overwatch ability, so on and so forth. There are all different types of sparks that you're going to get through a variety of main story and side content, and they will sort of tailor your build. But otherwise, the movement here is completely unhinged. So you'll be able to move Luigi into a particular spot, and then have him ready just to bounce Mario somewhere. Mario will float down into a different piece of cover. Then Luigi can move, and then maybe Rabbid Peach can bounce off of him, and then Luigi can take his turn. Like, there's a lot of strategy in the movement rather than the execution of your actions, which there is a difference. You'll be thinking about where you want to end up on the map more than what attacks you're going to use. And I like that because it's very different from typical turn-based RPGs, which isn't a bad thing of, what elemental weakness should I use? Which this game does have, but I like that there is a approach here that's very different. Where do I move? How do I bend the game systems to my will to get behind the enemy, flank their cover, flesh them out, all that stuff. So I really dug the movement system in this game. When I first saw it, I was a little unsure. I really liked the traditional XCOM approach here in Kingdom Battle. I just thought it was so masterfully done. We don't get enough XCOM spin-offs. I know we have like Phoenix Point and so on and so forth, but we don't get enough. And I thought this game was really true to form. And that was odd because, again, it's a Mario game. So when I saw Sparks of Hope for the first time, I wasn't sure about the movement system, but now I'm convinced it was definitely the right call. As I said, you get 2 action points per turn, per character. Those are things like the sparks I mentioned, as well as general attacks. There are also techniques. Every character has a different technique, and I love the animations for these because it actually made Mario and Luigi, like, cool. I love these characters, by the way, but I never thought, oh, they're so cool. Not to quote that Nintendo Direct with Chris Pratt. He's so cool. But, you know, there's a moment where there's this animation Mario does where he spins his pistols and crosses his arms, and I went, that was fresh. Or Luigi kind of like looking up at the camera, doing a steely stare and just drawing his bow. I'm like, this doofus is cool. What? How? But it worked, man. It worked. They actually made these characters really cool, and I love that because each of the various party members you're going to get play so differently. You know, Mario's your all-around. He's a jack of all trades. He can do anything. Luigi's a sniper. As he gets closer to enemies, he's not as useful. I do wish they tapped more into like the Luigi's Mansion tool set in some way, kind of making him more of a scaredy cat and using ghosts or something. I think that would have made him more unique than just a standard sniper. Rabbid Peach is a healer. Rabbid Mario is like this brawler. He's busted, man. Especially when you move up his movement skill, he can just fly around the map and wipe out cones and cones of enemies. And his cone, like his view for the amount of people he can hit in his attack, is huge. So he'll just wipe out a whole battlefield, no problem, which does make this game a little bit easier. That is something you will have to adjust to, perhaps, is the battles here. They were never difficult in Kingdom Battle as far as I was concerned, but you had to think a lot more with your attacks. You don't really have to in this game. So I've mentioned these skills a lot. Let's talk about them. As you complete various tasks, you'll get skill prisms. As you level up, you'll get skill prisms. These are points that can be spent whenever you want, but they don't lock you in. So you'll notice as you're going through the game that you can refund these literally whenever. You can just retool your build right there, right during a battle even if you wanted to. Where right as it starts, it asks you, do you want to manage your team? How do you want to manage it? So on and so forth. And you can literally just change your skill set right there. And these are things that are similar across all characters, like health, damage, and then there are ones more unique to their abilities. I was a little disappointed by this system. I just didn't think there was enough here to really distinguish between each of the party members, what I should upgrade, what would make them different, because a lot of them share the same skill set. Now, based off the weapon that they are set with, that does guide you down a certain path. Like for me, as I mentioned with Rabbid Mario, you know, this guy's a brawler. I'm going to move his movement up and his damage up because I want him to just fly around the map and knock people out. But, you know, what's different between that and using Mario, who has guns and can do it from a distance? Like, why wouldn't I just do that? So I feel like the skill system is just sort of there and can defeat itself at times. But there are also upgrades that are for very particular skills that particular characters have, and that's where it shines. That's where it feels unique, individualized. What is also unique is the star bit system. There is a little bit of level gating here. This is the only time in the game I felt there was some Ubisoft energy here. So as you're going through the game and you're beating enemies, you're going to get star bits at the end of each combat section. You'll be able to spend these star bits on the sparks and they will level up. You can't just level them up infinitely. You have to hit a certain base level and then you'll unlock a new level cap for the sparks. So it's systems that connect to each other. Meaning that, okay, you're level 9, you've now unlocked the second tier of the sparks that you can continue to upgrade, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, the leveling system is simple. Once you level up, your HP goes up, the amount of damage you do goes up, and that's really it. It's a pretty simple system, and it should be. It's focused mostly on exploration and questing, which I personally like, but I do think it comes at the cost of some simplified combat. All in all, it is a beautiful follow-up to a game that I adore very much. Can I say that I like it more than Kingdom Battle? I think so, because ultimately it expands on a lot of the content that's there. I just wish, quite frankly, it was a little more difficult. It does get a bit tougher as you get deeper in the game, but I was left wanting more of a challenge there. Not something that would be soul-crushing. Again, we have to remember who this is made for, and I'm glad that a younger audience will have a really good RPG here that can start them off. Let me just say, first and foremost, that if you are a parent watching this and you're thinking, oh, I should maybe get a game for my kid, this is perfect if you're trying to introduce them to RPGs. There's so many hardcore ones out there, so many somber tales being told. It's very rare you get a legitimately good RPG series exclusive to Switch that is very user-friendly. So there is that as well. We have to look at it from that angle. But as a man-child, it does get my stamp of approval, and I do think you should go check it out. Especially if you're like me and you were obsessed with this game, you will absolutely love the way that Ubisoft expanded upon the first game. There's a lot here that's great, and I especially love the questing, the environments. It's all great. I'm just being a little nitpicky with the combat because I feel like with the way it expanded, it also folded some of the things that made the original game special. But it's still there. It's still great. And so I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think of Mario and Rabbids? Please do fire away and make sure I don't feel too alone on my love of this franchise. Other than that, take great care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.